Yeah.
Am I distracting you?
No, we're just thinking. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so that is on.
All
the
the time.
timer's on. Everything's on?
Yeah,
Everything's
on.
recording?
Recording, yeah. It's
Okay,
been recording
good.
for 2 minutes.
Alright, we're back for another episode of Crosstalk. I'm Tim.
I'm Chris.
And today we're talking about franchise fatigue. So Chris and I thought it would be really awesome to delve into some of our favorite franchises and sort of give you our take on why some franchises are really successful at maintaining their legacy or establishing a legacy, and others sort of miss the mark, especially when they're related to adapted material.
Yeah.
So Chris, why don't I ask you how you're feeling about the Marvel Cinematic Universe to start?
So, obviously I still really like the films. I think they do a really good job, but I also feel like they've settled into kind of a formula. They do origin stories every time out, especially with Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange was basically Iron Man. Iron Man with magic.
Yeah.
So it was basically, I found it was basically the same film. I haven't seen Ant-Man yet. I heard it's pretty fun, but at the same time, it's another origin story. Where
Totally.
The scientist steals technology shouldn't belong to him, and he's got to get it back, and he's got to reluctantly become the hero. And it's like we've seen this.
Yeah, so it's the standard hero's journey.
Yeah.
With a little bit of a flavor twist based on the superhero's powers.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, credit where credit's due. They have a formula that works financially, and they still get critical acclaim. I just feel for me.
Yeah.
It's sometimes I skip Ant-Man in theaters, for example, because I'm like, I don't really need. I'll wait till it comes out. I'll eventually see it because I don't need to keep revisiting origin stories.
And the thing that's interesting about the MCU is, as we know, they are owned by Disney, right? So we've talked before about how Disney's really accomplished in terms of their formula.
Yes.
So I feel personally that a lot of the credibility of the MCU sort of falls on the shoulders of Disney saying, listen, we know this is a sticking formula, follow through with this.
Yeah.
And, that could be just my feelings. I
think it's pretty valid. I mean, to a certain extent. They do have some sort of freedom, but at the same time, Disney has a formula, and now Marvel does too. That's probably not a coincidence.
Yeah, exactly.
What's interesting is Black Panther seems to be they're not going to do the origin route because they introduced him in his origin in Civil War. So
and the same is true of Spider-Man, right?
Could
so
be,
there's an opportunity with both those films
to get away from the origin. So I really hope they do.
Now let's go to the other side of the coin and talk about DC. Whereas I think we talk about Batman as an example. How many standalone Batman movies have there been? There have been 7 now, I believe. Right?
Yeah.
Not
7.
counting the ones that were from the TV show with.
Adam West.
Yeah, Adam West. So the challenge there is, how is the DC universe supposed to catch up to the MCU, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem with them. They're just playing catch up, and there's too many cooks in the kitchen, I feel. You got Zack Snyder and you got Ben Affleck pulling in different directions. Then you have obvious studio interference because Batman vs. Superman got cut quite a bit. It's not saying it'd be a great movie if they had the extra scenes. And I know for a fact that Suicide Squad got cut to shreds.
Yeah.
And I know the director, he wanted to have... he's recently come out and said that he wanted the Joker to be the main antagonist.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Joker scenes got cut, so there's just too much. They're just and that's too bad because I feel like they're trying to do something different, and I don't want them to be the same. I don't at all. Yeah.
And the challenge too is because they're not taking the time to build out their universe appropriately. What they're doing instead is pushing through these stories as fast as they can. Not taking time with the plot to really get a good sense of what the plot should be.
Yeah.
They're getting a ton of footage. There's tons of recuts for Suicide Squad, Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
And I think we'll probably hear the same thing about Justice League, or Dawn of Justice, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Dawn of Justice was Vietnam.
Yeah.
But the Justice League movie.
Yeah.
And the problem with those movies is that there is a good plot in them. It's just 3 hours plus worth of content to get to the final plot. Now, really quickly as an aside, I think we should also talk about the X-Men franchise because it is related into Marvel, it's superhero fandom as well, and they've done something very different than, well, Fox has done something very different than what Marvel
Marvel's
has
Disney
done.
banner, yeah.
And it's really, I think, in some ways, it's really good because comic books are full of lots of writers and artists and lots of stories, and there's continuity errors and there's challenges.
There always is, and retconning and all that kind of stuff, right?
And so those X-Men movies, they're actually building all these crazy different stories, and they're pulling from the X-Men universe, and so they've had some really interesting films. Like Days of Future Past is probably one of the top 5 superhero movies of all time.
Yeah.
Right? And, Logan looks like it's going to be amazing as well.
However, if you look at, on the other side of that, their timelines are they're just a mess.
Yes.
Like, they've gone and retconned so much with the First Class series of movies.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but the director of Logan basically said, "Yeah, we're ignoring all of this. We're ignoring all of this. We're a standalone film."
Yeah.
And it's like they're having the character of Caliban played by a different actor than the one that was in X-Men Apocalypse, and they're basically ignoring what happened to that character in that film.
But I still think that's a good thing, because you look at all those stories, you would see them drawn differently, you would see the characters written differently, and sometimes people get annoyed because it's like, oh, I like Deadpool, written as a serious character, but then he became this fourth wall breaking character.
Yeah.
So there's an evolution of Deadpool, but it's not necessarily a bad
Now,
thing.
to that point, that's another point in the win column, is the fact that it gives Deadpool more fourth wall breaking jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Colossus is taking him away
Mm-hmm.
in Deadpool film, right? He's hauling away. He's like, "We're going to go see Professor Xavier." He's like, "McAvoy Stewart, I don't know which timeline we're in." And it's like, it's a great little meta joke, right?
Yeah.
So if that's if we get a little bit more than that, then I'm totally fine.
So they're actually conscious of the fact that they are ignoring continuity,
And their timelines are
are messed up.
a mess. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So now we've gone over the superheroes.
Yep.
Got that out of the way.
That's right. We got a diverse system, which we always do at the beginning of reviews all the time.
We can talk about some other well-established franchises.
Yeah.
So I think
let's talk about something we also never talk about: Star Wars.
yeah. So Star Wars has done some great stuff,
And recently too.
Yeah. So excited,
Yeah.
and of course this is one of those times where we're on opposite sides of the coin in terms of the films they've done recently. But I think overall we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So Rogue One.
Yeah.
We both really liked.
Yes.
You liked way more than I
like
did.
way more than The Force Awakens.
But
However, I have read and I've heard people say that Force Awakens is much better than Rogue One. So it really depends on. It's 50-50. You can fall on either side,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see an argument either way personally.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, Force Awakens was just. I think what colors it for me is J.J. Abrams, because I just don't like his work. Outside of maybe 1 or 2 films,
Yeah.
I just find he just throws things at the wall, and some things stick, and there's 800 plot holes that never get explained, and
it's all glamour with him.
And lens flares everywhere, and I'm just like, I just don't like your style, man. Yeah.
So I think my theory is the reason why you like it so much, and why I think a lot of people of our ilk like it so much, is because it is a film for people who like the original trilogy.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
And it hops right off the heels of, not off the heels of, but it proceeds very tightly. Spoiler alert to those of you who haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But very tightly to A New Hope.
Yes.
So there's a lot of room in there for people who like those first 3 movies to accept that into
it's definitely caked with nostalgia.
Yeah.
And on purpose Easter eggs for people, to make that connection to the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And but for me, one of the things I like the best about it is the ending, and I won't say what it is because I want to spoil it. But I think the ending was a gutsy little call, because usually that's not how Star Wars movies end.
Yeah, that's true. It's very, and I'm getting a little teary-eyed thinking about it. It is a little bit like intense. Now, on the other side of the coin with The Force Awakens, I think the reason why that movie is a good movie and why people like it a lot is because and I've made this point several times, but I'm
Yeah.
going to say it one more time,
Yeah.
sound like a broken record. It allows new people to come into the franchise by taking an existing formula and doing exactly what we've already established was a good film.
Yeah.
Right?
And
So people say it's basically note for note, A New,
A New
Hope.
Hope. Yeah.
But kids or young people or people who've never watched Star Wars will watch that and say, this is a really good movie.
Yeah.
And then they'll go watch New Hope and say, hey, it's a lot like this.
It's a lot like A New Hope. Yeah. And it washed the bad taste of the prequels out of people's mouths.
Now let's talk about Star Trek. Just for a minute. Because you can't talk about Star Wars without talking about Star Trek when it comes
Because
to franchise.
the whole J.J. Abrams connections too, right?
That's especially true. So J.J. Abrams did not one but two Star Trek movies now.
Yeah. One that was okay and the other one was terrible.
And then he produced the third one.
Yes. Right? Yeah, I believe so.
And we know as fans of Star Trek that generally the rule of Star Trek is that one's going to be good and then the next one's going to be bad and so on and so forth, right? And that's kind of what we experienced with J.J.
Up to after First Contact, that so Insurrection held up the rule that the even ones are good and the odd ones are bad, and then the one after that was bad too. So then the rules flew out the window. But yes, Star Trek is really inconsistent. Part of that has to do with the fact that they have, so they rebooted the universe. That's part of it, but they even before that they kept having different directors come in and. When you have that, I mean, I guess you do in other franchises too, but there was with Star Wars, it's George Lucas's vision. Now it's Disney's vision. With Star Trek, it's like Paramount, and then Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner both directed movies in the Star Trek.
Yeah.
Jonathan Frakes directed like 2 or 3 movies in the Next Generation. So you know what I mean? It's just so and you got writers of the show coming and going.
Yeah. So everybody's looking at Roddenberry saying,
fluid.
"This is what you kind of were aiming for, right?"
Yeah,
and
he's been dead for like.
but
40
not
years,
knowing
right?
how to take anything away from that, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think you hit the nail on the head. But that's kind of why it's uneven.
Yeah, and I feel like that's exactly why. That being said, I still. Trek, Star Wars was what I got started in, but Trek is what I fell in love with. But even then, even the shows are super uneven.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, so that covers the major points that we know that we can't help but talk about. So let's talk about some other stuff that we know is good, and sometimes some of these types of movies, like The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Those are really well made films and they're enjoyable, but I would say that Peter Jackson took that success of that first couple films and kind of just loaded the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Even by The Return of the King, it was starting to get a little bit...
And if you watch the extended editions, you're like looking at 3 days to get through like all 3 of them.
Yeah.
That being said, even then, like there's so much... With Lord of the Rings, it's such a huge epic, like there's 3 huge novels, and then there's appendices on top of it. There's so much material to work with.
Yeah.
But then when he got to The Hobbit, the studio got greedy, and they're like, "Hey, let's stretch out the 3 films." And The Hobbit is like what, this thick?
Yeah.
So it's almost like an appendice to Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
An appendix. So there just wasn't enough material there to stretch it out to 3, and he just
somehow
let's
did it.
drag this along, and then you got the law of diminishing returns out of the sequels, right? They didn't do near as well as the first one.
Yeah.
So, and you see that too with books that have been adapted into film, like specifically the last movie. Twilight Saga is guilty of this.
Yep.
The Hunger Games series is guilty of this, and Maze Runner, and
Divergent.
Yeah, and Harry Potter is guilty. Let's split the last book into 2 films, and the source material almost never allows for it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I feel like Harry Potter may have been sort of an exception, but even then, I think that people still thought that about it, just less of an extent. But the Hunger Games, for sure. Like I know several people who have read the book and then saw the films and they're like, there's so much that they just dragged it out. Like they shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. When you translate something from book to film, there's things that you have to do differently because of the format.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just not realistic to expect the audience to follow along with that pattern or that methodology, because the details that you need to read a book are there for a reason. You're using your imagination to build a universe or build a setting or what have you.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas a film already has visuals.
It's got it's a visual medium, right?
Yeah.
So you have to change things, but not only that, it's just a case of good old-fashioned studio grade, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that the book is that much longer, like the final book in the series is that much longer and more rich than the rest of them.
Yeah.
It's just that we can make more money if we split it into two.
Squeeze out a little bit more profits.
Yeah, exactly. And because people will go see it because they want to see the conclusion. So they have you and they know it, right? So it's an unfortunate thing, and I really like to see that happening less.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably going to happen more.
Yeah.
As long as it's a successful tactic, right?
Now, okay, let's go a different direction and talk about another franchise that I think is a really good franchise, but is problematic for a different reason, which is Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
So we know that Planet of the Apes conceptually is a really good film, and all of the following sequels all touch upon that same theme really well. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
But those movies suffer for a different reason, and the reason I think is because they made so many of them so quickly that the costuming and the locations and all that suffer, and they're not visually appealing. They don't hold up over time.
Yeah, and I just thought of this example. We didn't talk about it before, but just literally thought of this. It's the exact same problem that Friday the 13th had.
Yeah.
Let's put a new movie out every year. They're cheap to make.
Yeah.
We got a built-in audience.
Yeah.
We'll make money, and sometimes you get Friday the 13th Part 6, and sometimes you get Friday the 13th Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah.
And that one was he's in Manhattan for 10 minutes at the end of the movie, so it's basically a lie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's a huge problem too. And there's a problem with Planet of the Apes, and there's a problem with Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
It's fairly common with horror.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they only made, I think, 5 or 6 Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street films.
There's 7 actually.
There's 7, including the reboot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 8 including the reboot.
8 including the reboot. But Friday the 13th is there's 10, then Freddy vs. Jason, then the reboot. So there's 12, and then they're going to reboot it again, so there's going to be 13 of them.
Yeah. So the challenge is
13, I guess.
The challenge is that you can get a really good story, and sometimes you can get a lot of subsequent good stories. But like you said, if movies are being made cheaply and to just get more and more of them out really fast, like Planet of the Apes, it doesn't really create a good legacy franchise.
Exactly. So most people, they'll remember a couple of good ones. For me, my personal favorites Part 6, because it's the first time you get Zombie Jason. Mm-hmm. But and a lot of people would say that probably Part 3 is their favorite, and then Jason X is funny and tongue in cheek and it pokes fun at itself, so it's fun that way. But but by the time they got to the psychic girl in Part 7, and then Jason Takes Manhattan, and then Jason Goes to Hell, where he's Jason, the embodiment of Jason's only in it for 10 minutes. You're like, this is terrible.
Yeah. Or the same thing can be said of Tremors.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Or Halloween Resurrection, where Busta Rhymes is freaking whipping out karate moves they learned off TV on freaking Michael Myers. That's, oh god. Yeah. Right? You end up getting stuff like that.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, no, that's a good point. And the thing I was gonna say is with Tremors, similar thing is that the original movie, great concept, really fun, entertaining, and you talked about yourself,
Yeah, lightning in a bottle too, right? It's just they got a lot of good. They got Michael Gross, who hadn't really done a ton of stuff film wise.
And Kevin Bacon early on as well.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon early on, and Burt Ward was fun in it too. Even Reba McEntire is she's entertaining in that film too, and they got they have the pogo stick girls, and that is in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So little things like that, and it's a cool little monster movie when a time where they maybe weren't getting made as often.
Yeah. But as the series progressed, they kind of realized that there was a really thin plot. By the time you get to the one,
it's a thin premise. Yeah.
By the time you get to thin premise. By the time you get to the fourth one,
Yeah.
where they go back to the Old West.
I know, it's like,
I
this
don't-
is super weird. Like, really? They were always around? How come nobody's seen them
Yeah.
till, like, 1991?
So sometimes franchises, like with the monster movies like Tremors or Planet of the Apes or, you know, those B-grade films, there's a lot of B-grade film franchises like that out there. We could probably find them.
Yeah.
They do those exact same things, and that's another challenge with franchise.
Yeah, I think too what they do oftentimes too is they remove a lot of the mystery.
Mhm.
I know with Frey, for example, like he was made less scary because he became a one-liner machine, right?
Yeah.
With Jason, they removed a lot of the mystery behind what he was.
Mhm.
With Tremors, same thing. Like you don't. The great thing about Tremors, they never explain. They don't tell you what they are.
Yeah.
They're just animals. Like they seem. Like, did they just not evolve? Are they
Yeah.
aliens?
Yeah.
Are they monsters? Where have they been? How come they never touch any of that?
Like, they called them graboids. They
Yeah.
just came up with this name.
They just made up a name for them. Nobody knows what they are, and they never explain it.
Yeah.
Tons of mystery, great. And then they start saying, like, okay, so they can hatch into these things, and this
They
is where they
can
came from,
get
and they've
two
been around
legs.
since the Old West, and, you know, they explain it, and it's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So-
although I've heard it's turned around because they had a TV show and then they did one where they did a sort of soft reboot.
With Jamie Kennedy. I think of all people.
Maybe. Anyway, so Michael Groff's been in all of them.
Yeah.
So they did the last one I heard was
Yeah.
pretty entertaining, sort of. So who knows?
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess to summarize, there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to building a franchise,
Yeah.
and we realize that filmmakers kind of hope that they can get those.
Yeah. Also, too, I would say that not everything has to be a franchise.
Yeah.
Just because something's successful and it makes like $1 billion, that doesn't mean that you need to. Like the Lego movie, for example, you know, really good. Now we're getting Lego Batman. Then
There'll
you're
be
getting a
another
sequel,
spin-off.
and you're getting Ninjago, and you're getting all this others, and all these direct to video like Lego Star Wars and Lego Justice League and Lego Marvel, and you're like, we don't need all this.
Yeah.
Like it was good.
Yeah.
Make a sequel, maybe 2, and that's it. That's all you need. Like you don't need this giant world.
Of Lego.
You don't.
Yeah.
You just don't, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge thing as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, you think, Chris? Do we summarize it?
I think we covered it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you agree with us? Disagree? What do you think about some of our examples of franchise? Do we talk about Star Wars too much? Feel free to comment below, like and share the video, and even better, subscribe to the channel.
Until next time, I'm Tim,
And I'm Chris.
and this is Crosstalk.